What a blessed morning of college football souls and recaps. Couple of things. One, Sunday Bloody Mary. So, wow, see, week 13, no sleep. Sunday Bloody Sunday. Cheers. Friends, hello. Hi, how are you? Couple of things I'm going to do this week. I'm going to break protocol. Protocol number one, usually when I wake up with bedhead after no night of sleep from college football all day, I try to put in like a little bit of an effort to look somewhat presentable. This morning, don't give a damn. Again, week 13. And I woke up tired. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to look how I look. Protocol number two. See that? I usually try to keep my fandom out of our college football discussions here on Sunday Bloody Sunday, but today I will not. Today I will be as obnoxious as I can be to celebrate one of the wildest endings in a college football game I've ever seen, with the end result of Arizona State, cheers, beating BYU. They're an Arizona win away next week in the rivalry game of the Territorial Cup, for, in all likelihood, playing for a Big 12 championship in a spot in the college football playoff. Let me repeat that again for anyone who is out there that doesn't believe me. Arizona State picked 16 out of 16 in the preseason poll in the Big 12, is one win away from playing for a Big 12 championship and potentially a spot in the college football playoff. Here's why I say that. First of all, this one's going to taste really, really good today. I say that because I was one of many during college football playoff expansion that thought perhaps more teams allowed in the playoff would dilute the importance of the regular season. Now, I was dead wrong about that. I think it's made this the most entertaining regular season that we've had in college football history. I think a caveat, but I also think it has opened our eyes to, because I think we've all made the adjustment, right? We've all made the adjustment through 13 weeks that 12 teams get into the college football. We've all made that adjustment. We know it's happening. Prior years, if you looked down at the rankings, which are going to be completely different come Tuesday, we tape this stuff before the AP poll gets released on Sundays. But if you look at the rankings now, there are going to be numerous three-loss teams. Alabama stunningly goes down to Oklahoma. We'll get into that. Actually, we do get into that. The Matt Barrie Show presented by Allstate with Paul Feinbaum. We touch on that. We'll get into that in a minute. Ole Miss goes down to Florida. By the way, cheers to Billy Napier. Outside connection, Arizona State receivers coach there for a couple years. So once a Sun Devil, always a Sun Devil adjacent, except for a couple of coaches that screwed the whole damn thing up. But when you look at the rankings now, we'd go down to, let's say, 12 to 15, and you'd look and see like that team doesn't belong playing for a national championship. That team doesn't belong playing for a national championship. And in large part, in any other year, it's true. But the fact that we've allowed 12 teams into this conversation, we're now making the argument for some of these teams, right? Like, I personally think the Boise State story is incredible. Ashton Genty is going to be one of the favorites for the Heisman Trophy. Do I think they're one of the 12 best teams in the country that should be playing for a national championship? Probably not. I think Tulane's a better football team out of the group of five. And I think Tulane probably could compete with one of these bigger schools for a spot, for a national championship spot and a playoff spot. But that's the world we live in, and I think it's a great world. I think it has now made some of these games that otherwise wouldn't have meant anything incredible and very meaningful. And each week, the stakes get higher. I'm very realistic in the fact, and I use ASU to Big 12 as a jumping off point. Any other year in the 14 playoff era, the Big 12 doesn't matter because they're not getting a team in. ASU's not being talked about as a potential Big 12 champion and playoff team. Iowa State, there's 4 teams that are 6-2 in league. BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, Arizona State. We wouldn't be talking about that. But this 12-team playoff has allowed us to pick teams from across the country and say, you know what? They're still in it. Hell, Georgia with 2 losses, probably in the old era, is not still in it. And so what we started to do as we reached the final week of the regular season is understand that this thing that was created that some people were for, most people were for, and a few people were against, and we were worried about the sanctity of the regular season because you have to admit it's the best regular season in sports. We're now starting to realize November football has been awesome. And every single game now, if you look at the SEC, little clearer picture now, which by the way, how about this? Cheers to the SEC somehow figuring out last night, Georgia in, you're in the SEC championship. Texas A&M, Texas, haven't played since 2011. They're going to be in College Station. First time they've played since 2011. There probably isn't a rivalry that's as hated as Texas A&M. First time they've played in 13 years. Guess what? It decides a spot in the SEC championship. How great is that? And these tiebreakers and the Big Ten and the Big 12 and all of this stuff coming together has resulted in what will be chaos in the final weekend of the season. You're going to be looking at teams who are going to be outside the top 12, hoping for stuff in front of them. There's going to be teams that aren't playing for their conference championship that are going to still have an opportunity to make it in. I mean, I look at Penn State. Penn State's sitting there thinking, oh, we may not have to do anything. We're 11-1. We got a scary win on the road yesterday at Minnesota by a point. We're in. And you know what? They might be because of Alabama losing and Ole Miss losing. Tennessee, good old Rocky Top, Tennessee. Cheer. I know you guys are drinking Bloody Marys on a Sunday morning. Hell, you might even have some brown liquor at this time on Sunday morning. You're sitting there last week angry that you losing it bounced out of the bracket. You're laughing this morning because of what happened to Alabama and Ole Miss. You're in. Beat Vanderbilt, you're in. And so that to me is going to be one of the more fascinating things we see going into the final week of the regular season and conference championship week. Who's going to benefit from just sitting around and not playing? Indiana to me is one of the biggest stories. I know Kurt Cignetti is a confident guy. Indiana is a great story, and they had a chance to prove it on Sunday. Cheers to what you've done to this point of the season. However, again, your strength of schedule is 106. You had an opportunity to prove it and get a ranked win against Ohio State, and you didn't, and you weren't close, and it wasn't competitive. I personally wouldn't throw Indiana in this week's bracket and let stuff happen in the final week of the regular season just because of their body of work. Doesn't say anything. And listen, I get it. Penn State, same thing. They haven't done a damn thing. They don't have a ranked win, and they're not going to get one next week because they don't play anybody good. Like, they're in the barn. So I get the back and forth. I think Penn State's ranked too high, but based on what's happened behind them, who are you going to rank? You can't start doing these 3-loss teams, these 2-loss teams. I get it. Some SEC teams are going to get the benefit of the doubt. They probably should because of the strength of schedule. That's an important metric as we get down to the final 2 weeks. But the Indiana conundrum is going to be interesting. I would bet 50-50 down the middle for Indiana, anti-Indiana, because the story going in the entire time, the strength is, it is what it is. That's not some ESPN cocked up theory that we're making up about the Hoosiers. Their schedule is what the schedule is. Look at it. Had an opportunity to do something against Ohio State. They weren't competitive. Early on in the game, they jumped out to a 7-0 lead. Tyson Lawton touchdown. They stopped Ohio State, 4th and goal. But then the Buckeyes started to roll. Emeka Egbuka, the special teams, Caleb Downs. I mean, anybody who watched, you got to tell me, did Indiana look like they were the same caliber of team as Ohio State? The answer is no. Now, is that the beauty of the 12-team playoff? To let someone like Indiana in the dance and let them have an opportunity to prove it? Sure, fine. What the hell? Put them in. But right now, final weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, Get Fat weekend is going to give us Friday, Saturday football. It's starting on Thursday. Dan Mullen and I are on the call of Tulane, Memphis. How big is this game now for Tulane? 9-2. They've already clinched a spot in the American Championship, but they can't lose again and make it to the playoff. And so the theme of today's Sunday Bloody Sunday, cheers. 1, me breaking protocol, looking like I just woke up from a 3-hour nap and wearing this. But 2, the final weekend of the regular season, in a year where we wondered if the quality of play would be diluted because more teams are getting in, we now know, because it's our first chance at this, that the 12-team college football playoff has enhanced the greatest sport on the planet to levels maybe we didn't even think possible. And because of upsets, cheers to Billy Napier, by the way, again. Left for dead a month ago. Probably going to beat Florida State 7-5, toughest schedule in the country, has some momentum to build on. I think it's a remarkable story. So anyway, here we are. Get your hydration this week. Eat a lot of fruits and salad pre-Wednesday because you know you're not come Thursday, Friday. By the way, why is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving one of the great party nights of the year? You ever realize that? Like everybody goes home from college or you're just meeting up with your old buddies and everyone just gets all drunk and hungover. Then you show up to Thanksgiving feeling awful. And there's always that guy that goes to like the dinner rolls and mashed potatoes before everyone because he's hungover. And his annoying aunt or someone in the family is just driving him nuts. So he's over at the alcohol table getting all plastered and full. Happy Thanksgiving. That sounded fun. Anyway, Sunday Bloody Sunday. We've made it. We've got one more week to go in the regular season. And I would bet by the time we're sitting here next Sunday, there's going to be a whole other level of absolute insanity. But that's what we love about it.